I recently spent some time with the owner of a pedal effects company, Phil, aka Bleak District Electric. Phil lives not a million miles from myself in the heart of the UK. Amongst other things that we got up to during the day, which if you're interested I'll drop a link here to another video, I sat down with Phil to find out more about his backstory, what his motivation is, how and why he started Bleak District Electric in the first place, and what his plans are for the future. So settle in for the next 15 minutes or so and I'll introduce you to Phil, the main man himself.
I started Bleak District because I was looking to start my own business. I wanted to get out of working for other people, and I love making pedals, and I thought I'm going to give it a go and make a company out of it, and I have. Also, I think another bit is that I wanted to be a good example for my little boy that you can make a living doing something you love. I mean, I've built guitars and bits of amps and things, but pedals, they make a bigger impact than anything else. You know, you can have more. I like different sounds and unique sounds. They're just so small and they can do so much. Whereas, you know, especially starting your own business, pedals offer a lot of chance to create new sounds, but without needing lots of space to do it. I learned it the same way I learn everything else, which is trial and error. Mainly error, yeah. Error and trial. I think the first things I did was actually circuit bending. Yeah, so taking apart, I think it was kids' keyboards, getting a bit of wire, maybe with a potentiometer attached, touching them to different bits, seeing what makes stuff go weird. Started doing that, and then I think through researching things about that, and circuit bending pedals, I circuit bent a fuzz pedal, and then I thought, oh, I could make some weird stuff here. I did that for ages just as a hobby, probably 10 years, yeah. There's a type of prototyping board called Vero board where you can kind of solder things to anywhere on it, and so a lot of that's really popular. There's a big online community around that, and there has been for a while. I wasn't big on social media and things then, or like being in like part of an online community, but I used the resources a lot. Bleak District started 2020. We're 20. Got an idea. Here we go. Right.
Okay.
I sold my first Bleak District pedal around just before Christmas 2021, the land scraper. And I used to have this idea about the aesthetic where it was just covering the top half, which is why the Tapescape, old Tapescape was like that as well. Right, that was the next one. That was the original Tapescape. So I had this, the land scraper. Oh, and then I released a tremolo called the Undertow. What it could do, so it's a multiple waveform tap tempo tremolo. As far as a tremolo goes, it does everything you want a tremolo to do. It feels weird because it's not very long ago, is it? Nice. You know, a year and a half or something. Yeah, so this is the next one. Yeah, Sun No, quite popular. Yeah, it's sort of inspired by the Model T sound and Sunno the band, and that kind of bottom heavy, like overpoweringly amp crushing kind of tone. But I sort of just drew inspiration from it rather than copying the schematic from the Model T amp, which there's loads of those. You can buy like the Model T preamp, and it sounds really good on low gain, on high gain. Just one tone control, but it covers quite a lot of ground. I try and incorporate the landscape into the artwork because I think that it impacts the pedals that I make, in that I try and look at what I'm doing as an art form in a way. It is sort of engineering as well, but I think as a whole they are things that I've created, and so they must be inspired by everything that I'm experiencing sort of is coming out into what I'm making. And I think it's such a brilliant place to live and make things and music, because it's really lovely today, but it's not always lovely, and it can be pretty bleak, but also bleak and beautiful at the same time, and also everything in between. We're in the Peak District, which is quite a large national park. It's one of the earliest ones in the UK. It might even be the first. Don't quote me on that. Fact check that, yeah. They're not huge mountains, but it's got a lot going on. Yeah, the name Peak District, Bleak District. It was actually, it was a band. I wanted it to be a band, so I had it in my head as like a band name, Bleak District, because I thought it was a cool band name. But when that band never materialised and I started the pedals, I thought, oh yeah, Bleak District would be a good one. I think the hardest part of running my own pedal company is probably the same things that the hardest part of running your own anything, if you're doing it on your own, is that you have to try and wear a lot of different hats, and it's difficult. I'm not naturally organised, so I think structuring my time, and I end up getting quite stressed sometimes about certain things. But it's also that it's challenging, which is fun, so it's hard to know which, you know, it's good to be challenged, isn't it? Designing pedals, yeah, that's the best bit. It's nice to see them come to fruition though when you get to the end bit, but I like thinking about it all, and initially the circuits, but I'm getting into the graphic design a little bit now as well, and like the layouts and thinking about that. Oh, I mean, there's lots of best parts. Working for yourself obviously is although like I said it's difficult, it's also very rewarding because you get out what you put in really, and you have obviously the flexibility and things like that. Being a pedal guy and musician, it's great getting to, because even if I'm not designing something, I can be playing other stuff to try and get inspiration or testing it against other pedals, and it's hard sometimes when you have to tell yourself that that's actually, you're doing it for a reason, for a job. And you are, you know, because you've got to try stuff out and, you know, like record tracks with them and make sure they're sounding good recorded, or, you know, or comparing them to other stuff. Still get to make music, you know, it's a part of my job, which is brilliant. I'd love to have a workshop / recording studio that has a bit more space, just to maybe incorporate more of a proper recording studio just as part of the workshop. I think it's an important thing to have when you're trying to make products that are making music. The main thing about making music for me, playing live is really important, but I think recording it, if you don't record it, it doesn't really exist. So I think being able to record stuff and being able to do that while you're designing things is really important. But in my head, like a big one of these old mill buildings around here, workshop in there with a recording studio in it and some stuff, build some cool equipment, got the desk, I need somewhere to put that, so definitely.
Need somewhere to put that. That justifies it in itself, doesn't it?
I do, yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. Product wise, the future, definitely synths, at least the synth that I'm working on, and hopefully others, maybe modular stuff. And also I really like, again I'm saying studio stuff, but like compression and EQ and things, again hopefully putting my own spin on it and things that aren't already available, so more extreme characterful pieces of equipment, and possibly things that are for a home studio, you know, where you get a box and it does like a few different things, but it's fairly small and easy to use, but you can just, if you want a bit of character that you can't get out of your normal interface, but you don't want to use plugins, then something nice. My head just keeps getting added to really all the time, so yeah. So far it tends to change really. A lot of it either depends on if I'm just messing around with things and experimenting, and then I find like a cool sound that's a bit unusual or a function of a chip. After it's been on the breadboard, I'd order a prototype circuit board and try and make it into a physical pedal, and then see if it still works and sounds good. You know, you do get ideas at funny times, same with anything. A lot of the time though, that would be more once I've started working on something and then I have an idea about it, but like a key function or a key way of doing something. But yeah, I do get ideas at funny times, but I try and just hold on to them rather than like run up and get on the breadboard, and because time disappears as well once you start doing that. It's one of those like flow state things where, you know, you could come up and start doing something and before you know it, 5 hours is just gone. That's a breadboard. I think I should label them. I think it might be a compressor on there. Yeah, this is an idea, studio thing, I think. That's a rec head, actually.
That's
part of, yeah.
The most popular pedal?
Yeah. So that's that.
I mean, so you then go to a prototype, have you got?
Oh yeah, so then this would be get a circuit board made, and then so you can test stuff out with the actual, you know, pots and everything like attached. Trying to get everything soon local, so the company that do my new labels are just in Stockport, which is just down the road. My boxes are going to be coming from Glossop. The circuit boards, they're going to be a company there in, I think they're Oldham, but that's going to be for the Tapescape going forward, which would be great, and then hopefully all the other pedals, and then everything can be a lot more localized, which would be great. Yeah, get them on this, and then I can change different components. I just sort of roughly desolder and solder them back on, or attach bits at random, and it's like to try out different parts in different places, and then from this goes to, you know, like another prototype, hopefully with all the right values on. Right. That I can get put in a prototype enclosure, you know, another one, and then can try that out as an actual pedal and give it a bit of a go for a while. From that, I guess then it goes to, like pretty much a pedal. The final prototype, you want to look like the actual pedal, really. Okay, so this was the the first one that I released as Bleak District, and that was Bleak District Electric Company one. My favourite delay or two favourites were the Boss DM2, which I'm, super famous analogue delay, but quite short delay time, and just classic Boss stuff. Really cool self-oscillation and just a really nice delay pedal. And also the WEM Copycat, which I've got up there. I wanted to try and get something that sounded a bit like those two, that kind of repeats. They both got dark repeats that didn't get in the way of what you're actually playing and just have a good warmth to them. But also try and get in some of that tape warble modulation. So this had a fairly simple and classic and sounding good, but used over and over again. Rate and depth control for modulation of the repeats, so you get that kind of chorusy, vibrato on the vibrato, but can be chorus. But I did have this feature that a friend of mine had it on a delay that he had, and I can't remember who made it, but it had this really cool feature where you press this momentary switch and it ramps the feedback up, so it can self-oscillate and then you can let go of it and it'll go back down. And so that was always going to be a feature, and that was on this. That was the first one. Oh, and the red was from the DM2 actually. It's just up there, so it was meant to be. And the Copycat's got a red on it as well. So it didn't come out quite. I think it was trying to be a mixture between the red of this and the Copycat maybe, but I always had the red in that I liked it. But that's that. I mean, it's amazing. So this was very similar. This is when I started with the graphics as well, so I was trying to sort of tie it all in together. The thing this had is JFET switch, which meant it was really much quieter when you turn it on and off, and the modulation was a bit more random wave modulation, which gives you a bit more of a realistic tape kind of modulation, like the way it actually works. Essentially the same core of the circuit, the same. Still trying to go off the same inspiration. Those two delays I just think are amazing. Yeah, this is the final prototype. It's just that the labels of some of the things are different because I changed what's going to happen with it really and how it's going to work. It really just builds on a lot of those things that I've mentioned about the tape aspect of things, and the sound, giving you control over all the different modulations that are happening. It's not just the wow, there's flutter, there's volume fluctuations depending on the quality of the tape heads, all sorts of different things. But then as it happened, by doing that, I realised I could also give it some other features. So the flutter, for example, can function as a tremolo with different waveforms. Much longer times. I've tried to incorporate some of the shorter times a bit cleaner as the way that people would use an analog delay. But then as the times get longer, you can introduce a bit more noise, like slowing the speed down of a tape. But then that noise can be brought in and out randomly with the flutter and failure of the tape for ambient sort of tape soundscape kind of things. I'm chuffed to bits with it. So it covers a lot of ground. And the rise switch is quiet now, so that's I'm really happy with that. Expression pedal can control the time, or it can control the rate of the flutter as well, so that brings in some really interesting uses. I'm always keen, I might have mentioned it before, about pedals being that you can kind of play the pedal almost, like with the Tapescape, and using envelopes so you can, as you're playing your instrument, the pedal is responding in a different way every time, so you're not just putting something in and getting the same sound out. This isn't envelope based, but using the expression pedals are similar, that you can control the pedal in real time as you're playing and make it an extension of your instrument really, which is really interesting, I think. Yeah, so dry is kill dry, so you can either have your dry signal in for your normal delay, or you can hear your dry signal and delay afterwards, or you can kill your dry, so you can use that in a few different ways, but the main reason I put it in is so you could have the time and the feedback right down, and use this as a pure tape simulator really, so you can use all the wow and flutter controls and just put your signal through it, and you get all those lovely sounds, but without having to use it as a delay pedal. Or you can use it, just kill the dry and still have loads of feedback and a bit more time, and you just can't hear your dry guitar, so it's super wet ambient stuff, really good, again with whatever controls you want. Type is the type of waveform that's being used for the flutter. So the top two are your random, and so that the flutter more traditional types. So either random, like jerky, or random smooth gives you that kind of failure aspect of a tape, or what I've tried to get. But the bottom one is traditional sine wave. So again, with it depends. Going off that one, the copycat, the flutter on that is regular, so it's going quite quickly. But so this will do that. But then you can also slow it down, and you've got a regular tremolo there, so you can use the pedal as a tremolo if you want to. Again, with all the things down, and the tone is the tone of the repeats. In the middle, the brightest, and then you're cutting off some of the high end from that. Again, part of it is to emulate the age of a tape. As the tapes get older, they do get a bit crunchier, and also lose the top end's the first thing that goes. Also, if you wanted, with the longer times and bringing in some of that noise that comes in with that, you can tame some of that off if you want, or if you just prefer it darker, because like the DM2 is pretty dark, and you can just get it nice and dark straight away, and then it's not in the way of what you're actually playing. If you're playing something quite complex but you want a bit of ambience with it, so just gives you a bit more flexibility. I was always really happy with the sound of the repeats on the older versions, but I just thought it's good to have a bit of
up in it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice thing to tweak, isn't it? The tone of the repeats, I think. But it didn't warrant a knob, so just think. You get a nice little switch, and then you're not taking up all that space, but you get a bit of control there. This says tape emulator / delay, but it's going to change. So it's going to be magnetic ambience generator, which I think describes it a bit more vaguely, really, because it can do so much. I didn't want to just call it it is a tape emulator, it is a delay, but it can do a lot more to the general sound, the ambience of your sound. So. But all based on the sound of a tape, really. Everything's coming back to that. Yeah. I am Bleak District Electric.
Okay.
I am Phil. Sorry. I'm Phil, owner, operator, manufacturer, designer, Bleak District Electric. You can find Bleak District Electric on our website, bleakdistrict.co.uk, or our Instagram account, Bleak District, or just Google Bleak District.
So an insight into the world of Phil and Bleak District Electric. If, like me, you're watching that back and thinking that you want more, you want to see and hear all about Bleak District Electric and the pedals and products that they offer, then I'm going to drop some links somewhere here. Please feel free to jump in and watch one of the other videos from when I spent some time with Phil earlier this month. If you like finding out all about gear and guitars and music stuff, then this might be the right channel for you. So please feel free to subscribe. Drop a comment below what you want to see on the next video, and thanks for joining me on the journey. See you again.